familiar faces. So we've got Jeff Judy, who is the Chief Cloud Architect over at Recovery Point, who's going to be coming up on stage in just a sec, as well as Brian Fisher, Cloud Architect for Zerto, a Hewlett-Packard company. So I'm going to just pull you guys up on stage now. Welcome, welcome, gentlemen.
Hello.
How you doing today?
Doing good, thanks.
Excellent, excellent. Perfect. Well, I'm going to leave you to this. Welcome to the stage. Excited to hear what you have prepared here. And then I'll be joining you two again for Q&A. So everyone out there in the audience, feel free to keep those questions coming in. If you have some queries come up, if something sparks your interest in the presentation here. And with that, I will take my leave and take it away, gents.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Mackenzie. So Brian, welcome aboard. I'm happy to do this presentation with you. That was with Mr. Kravitz. It was a good segue into Zerto, and happy to talk about our recovery services with Recovery Point Systems. Today, we're going to discuss how Recovery Point and Zerto work together to ensure that your data is protected and that you're able to recover from any disaster. A little bit about us. We're Recovery Point Systems. We are a pure play disaster recovery service provider, and our mission is to deliver exceptional recovery services. We've been a Recovery Point partner of Zerto partner, service provider partner for nearly 14 years, and we provide expertise in high availability architectures, backup replication technologies, cloud solutions, and security best practices to implement disaster recovery solutions that meet your recovery time and recovery point objectives. So Brian, let's talk a little bit about what's going on out in the world today. Where does HP and Zerto see things?
I appreciate that intro, and it has been a really good. I've been working with you for what, two of those 15 years, I guess now.
Yeah,
it's been a great relationship, and it's a lot of fun, quite honestly, working with Recovery Point from a Zerto perspective. So yeah, current trends in the U.S., what we're seeing, really, we kind of categorize it in three categories as you see here: threat landscape, evolving regulations, and growth within cyber spend, right? So just a few examples here. Almost $5 million is being spent on just the cost of data breach, which is a lot of money for a lot of companies, right? And nearly half of all the recorded ransomware instances worldwide happen in the United States. So the U.S. is the largest target for those ransomware as a service state actors, that kind of thing. That everybody's kind of, because we have the most GDP, we have we kind of run the world in a sense in so many avenues. That really makes the U.S. a market that is one that needs to be focused on, because there is so much threat going on here. It's is becoming not a question of if, but when you're going to get hit with something. That's what we're seeing. Regulations continue to change. The government's constantly looking to see how do we protect these companies and our stockholders and everything else. And in the past 5 years, the premiums for cyber insurance have doubled, and it's projected that they'll reach $29 billion by 2027. That's just amazing. And then we have stricter frameworks with NIST 2.0, and which we'll talk a little bit later on. Really is a great framework to lead everybody with, and like I said, we'll get into greater detail about that. And then lastly, just $13 billion the federal government, the U.S. federal government's planning to spend. That's what they budgeted, $13 billion just on cybersecurity. And the biggest spenders for cybersecurity and security as a whole are banking, manufacturing, professional services, and federal government. So there's money out there. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody has to deal with it. It's how and where and when, I guess, is what really boils down to. And I think that's why Recovery Point's in a great position right now.
Yeah. I've heard it's not if, but when, but even more so, how many times are you going to get
That
hit?
is true. Yeah, I would agree. A lot of our customers are not if they get attacked once, it's usually 3 6 months they're attacked again because they're usually haven't solved all the problems that allowed that actor in the first place.
Mm-hmm. So let's take a look at some of the top challenges. Brian, take us through what you're seeing out there. Is it safe to
Sure.
say cyber threats are really the number one disaster event?
100%. That's really where it's at right now. The top of mind for everybody is ransomware. Ransomware as a service, as I mentioned, those are being driven by state sponsored attacks. There's organizations within that they're recruiting developers and other. They're using AI. Just organized cyber crime. It's really it's a large business. Then you have unplanned disruptions, which we still have, always have been there. Those are the God creations. It's hardware failures and corruptions. It's user errors and natural disasters. Just losing your internet is a disaster. It's still today. Cloud complexity. Really, vendor platform lock-in is a big deal for companies that are out there today. It's one of the reasons why Zerto has always adopted as early as we could. The public cloud, we were first into AWS. We're the first to be able to get you in and out. Then we moved to Azure, but our backbone of our business has been our cloud providers such as Recovery Point. That's where most of our still a large chunk of our business is at for those that are in public cloud.
Yeah, just one note, like cloud complexities is really a growth area. In addition to like the number one growth area, really cyber threats, but cloud complexity is another one where as things expand out into the cloud, we've got clients. I've got a client that comes to me and says, "Hey, I've got a GPS SaaS vendor that's running a geographic information system. They use that for surveying and geology management, things like that. But that data transmits into their SAP system in their private cloud for supply chain management, and then they track everything through a work dispatch through Salesforce. And then they've got some on-prem Oracle, some on-prem DB2, homegrown databases for applications." And he's like, he shows me that picture. He's like, "Can you help me recover that?" So you look at all the complexity and where all the data sits out there. It's kind of spread out in different areas, in different data centers, really. So that kind of complexity you have to be able to plan for, understand when you're up front, when you're putting that kind of architecture in place, and then be able to test that you can recover in that kind of design.
100%. And I think that's the big key piece is how do you, what kind of run book, what kind of process, what kind of initial response program have you put together, right? Depending on what the problem may be. Is it ransomware? Is it a natural disaster? Whatever. You may have to have different response pieces because of the complexity that you've had to build out, because we're moving to SaaS-based applications. Companies they may have, and your example is their own, they have a SaaS-based, there was Salesforce. They have an SAP private cloud, again, SaaS-based. How are they protecting all that? Then they have their Oracle on-prem and everything else. They got to have their data and their data all the way through. And that's why we rely on service providers like yourself who can stitch all that together for them, because they don't have to go build their own team. They don't have to spend the millions of dollars on skilled groups, right? They have gaps coming to you, I think, and to all of our service providers. That's why it's been beneficial. You guys fill those gaps for them without them having to hire those people.
Yeah, so true. I mean, sometimes that stuff kind of just happens organically. Different teams are running in different directions, but then you have to protect that. You have to be able to recover from a cyber attack, but you have to understand what all your data sets are.
And on top of that, with that complexity, where's the attack actually hitting? Is it just one of these pieces of that application? Is it all of it? Where's that going to go? And I think we talk about that later in slides, but another key piece that has to be identified, and that's one of the things you guys do really well.
Yep. Thanks. So let's take a look real quick at where are you spending your money after a breach? And what I see, what we both see is really that there's an acceleration of budgeting and project priority around a cyber recovery after the company has been attacked. and they've gone through the time-consuming, it's costly, it's painful recovery processes. There's a lot of time and money lost because there was no spend up front. There was no priority to being able to properly implement a cyber recovery plan. So, when you look at this report just kind of shows you where clients are spending their money after an attack. And once they've felt the pain, things start to accelerate. You can see there's major investments in incident response planning and testing, threat detection, and in employee training, which if you look at the green charts over there, that's really the highest cost savings that is returned to you when you do suffer an attack, is that employee training. So making those investments really pays off when that attack does happen. And surely having a proper incident response plan is a huge, huge part of being able to quickly recover and save your business and save everybody a bunch of headaches and time and money.
I agree with you 100%. Disaster recovery has been around since the computers came into effect in the 50s and 60s, right? But it was all mainframe, and it was all that other, and large. It was only the largest companies really focused on it and had the expertise. And that's where, as we've gotten and grown and gotten more specialized, companies have gotten smaller and smaller, and they don't have all the staff. And so this is where, Recovery Point, again, fills in these voids, I think. And to your point, training and investing in your own employees can go and save you tons of money compared to what you have to spend to train them. It makes them more loyal, helps them. They learn more about doing a project with you for disaster recovery with Recovery Point is training in its own right, because they're learning more and more about their own business applications and how they interact and how they don't interact. And that's all is preparation for when they have an incident and how do they respond. And I think that's the unwritten amount. It's very hard to put TCO or total cost of ownership or ROI on something like that. That's really what makes you guys stand out, because all you do is disaster recovery for people.
Yeah, we're a pure play DR provider, and we're testing week in and week out with different clients. And so what I've seen over most of 24 and certainly the first half of this year, first quarter of this year, is a major uptick in cyber recovery focused DR exercises. So all of our clients are coming in and saying, hey, we need to run a incident response tabletop exercise. Can you sit in with us to respond to the requests and the interjections in the scenarios that we're thinking about we have to deal with? Clients coming in saying, hey, we don't want to just recover from, we know we can recover from the replication solutions, but what if that's completely corrupted? Do you have a spot for us where you can recover from our backups if we had to? And we're like, certainly, we can run through that scenario as well into our clean room infrastructure.
And that's, again, those pieces you adding in, those are things they hadn't thought about, right? You're showing them how it's done where they don't have that expertise. You're filling those gaps. Again, that is the key to why you guys are successful at what you do. Other people are just checking boxes. You're making sure they're actually function. They are going to work. They're going to recover, that their investment isn't just lost.
That's the truth. So Brian, take us through the NIST framework here a little bit. I mean, there are challenges with cyber recovery that perhaps people haven't really taken into consideration. They kind of take for granted that I'll be able to recover my systems, but you kind of have to think about what might happen.
Sure. I mean, it's just like what we had made mention about. You don't know, unpredictable attack patterns. Where's it going to come from? Where's it going to start? How's it going to flow? Even those that get attacked and recover with your expertise and help, and they may get attacked again, that attack's probably going to come from a different avenue or a different way. The pattern's not going to be exactly the same. It's not going to look and feel the same. So that makes it very difficult to have a full baked plan. It's more about how do you test. The more familiar you are with all the nuances of recovering, then the less complicated it actually becomes. The other big problem is like this bullet number 2, unknown blast radius. Is it just going to be 5 machines? Is it 50 machines? If I got 100, is it all of them? Or is it just 2, right? And if it's your CRM or your financial side of the house that gets attacked, then your business is down. So the blast radius may be small in BM number or the view of it, but it could really be detrimental to your business as a whole. And the third point is unclean recovery points, right? You just don't know, and backups are very difficult to restore and validate and do all that other. It takes more time and all of that. And do you know the tape that was sent off to wherever, is it going to come back and be clean? Is it good? Where Zerto, with our capability to test during production hours and all that other, and the fact that you guys perform these tests for customers, whether they're there or not, and then give them proof that it was done successfully, is proving that there's clean recover points and that the process is successful. What I missed there on that piece of it that I've left out about recover points is not there, and you guys are there specifically. Anything to add that I had left out? I mean,
well, I was just going to say, I love working with Zerto. Like, your technology is one of the best for the continuous data protection and just rapid recovery, which we'll actually get into in a little bit deeper into detail. But, with the NIST framework here, we cover all aspects of the identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover, and governance. With our test cycles, our DR approach, certainly you're going to make investments up front for your managed detect and response. And those technologies have improved greatly to reduce the dwell time of attacks anyways. But there's still those 0 days that can get in there and can just completely disrupt all of your systems. And you have to be prepared. So that's really where the identification of your data sets live. They could be dispersed among all sorts of SaaS vendors, cloud, on-prem. Then, the protection of those data sets. You might have a very certain amount of systems and data that are very critical that you'll protect using Zerto, but there are maybe other systems that don't need to be recovered as quickly or as critical to your business, and you can tier those out to a more cost-affordable, cost-effective solution, and so on. And then the detect, respond, and recover. That's part of the whole incident response planning and execution.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I was just going to say, yeah, and with our automation and back-end built APIs, the recovery part is much simpler with you and with what you guys have built into it. And what I like about what you've highlighted here on the whole NIST framework is where recovery point really are specialists, and then where's the responsibility for the customer, so to speak, as well, or whether you work jointly with them in this breakout. I mean, this is the same for everyone, the same frameworks for everybody, but how recovery point goes about highlighting it and makes it very simple for the end customer.
Yeah, in
my opinion.
Our CISO, he's got the motto that if you can see it, you can solve it. So if you know where your data lives, you can plan and be prepared for the steps you have to take for recovery. But then, we like to say that, like I said, we've been working with Zerto for about 14 years now, and Zerto plus recovery point plus Zerto, it equals the easy button for failover. We have leadership in the DR space. We're a pure play DR service provider. So you combine that with Zerto's continuous data protection, it really puts us in the right place at the right time to help your business bounce back from a cyber attack. And I personally, I think it's our responsibility as a DR provider and a leadership in this space to take on that role and be able to prevent help you recover from the cyber attack. And the way things are trending out there with these ransomware as a service type offerings and the AI revolution, where even the bad guys are taking advantage of that as well. We're going to see more and more of that through 2025.
I would agree with you 100% that it's there was a little bit of a lull last year, at the beginning of this year, at the end of last year and the beginning of this year, due to some governments catching some of the cyber people, but they've dispersed and then reorganized and are coming back hot and heavy. The second quarter, there's already been a larger number of attacks than what there was in the first quarter for sure. And I just see that continuing to rise as they continue to use AI and other pieces. And this is why, if you don't have a plan, you really need to contact Recover Point to help you create a plan, because we've said it once. I think we've said it twice. We might as well say it a third time.
Go ahead.
Yeah. It's not a if, it's when, right? And so you need to really work with this. And I'm happy from an Zerto HPE perspective, we love the fact to be working with Recover Point because you are a dedicated provider just for DRaaS. That's what you do day in and day out. That's your specialty. It's about the security. It's the whole package, not just one piece of a bigger chunk of pie. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Let's take a look at the architecture briefly, and then we can talk about time travel in a second.
Very good.
I just wanted to highlight here, this is a Zerto architecture, right? You're going to replicate virtual machines out, and you'll land them in our data center, our disaster recovery site, and it's continuous data protection. So, you can granular recovery down to minute. With recovery time, can be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, just really how long does it take for the operating system to boot up. But just to highlight that when you do this data replication failover and you have to have your business continuity strategies using Zerto, there's also other DR tools involved as well. And even within Zerto, Zerto offers long-term retention too. So you can take backups right inside the software, and you can land those on our immutable S3 storage as well. So not only will you have your replication solution, but you also have backup copies that are immutable. And what that means is that they cannot be deleted, they can't be altered. That, in the event that you're really down hard and your journaling's corrupted, you still have those backups that you can bring back online.
No, you're spot on with that. And one of the things that's great, and you made mention of the CDP, and that's really what Zerto brought to life years ago, back in 2011 when we first were formed. CDP is our continuous data protection, and we do that through, we'll talk on in another slide here in a minute, but we write only the writes, and we do it at the hypervisor layer where there's no guest in agents or anything to that effect that have an effect on the production. There's no snapshotting, anything like that. We're mirroring the writes at the hypervisor layer and send them to Recovery Point from wherever the source may be. And that can be public cloud into Recovery Point. It can be your own data center, wherever it is. But we only do the virtualized workloads. Again, mainly VMware's where we started and where we've been. We also do those native clouds of AWS and Azure. We don't do Google Cloud at this moment in time. Google Cloud can only be done from a VMware, what they call Google VMware Cloud, I think is GVC. We can replicate out of that into the Recovery Point environment. But we play well with all the backup storage providers out there. And I think that's one of the things that, again, is what you bring to that customer is you can stitch all that fabric together. You help them identify what is the critical workloads that need to be that have the lowest RTOs and lowest RPOs, and you put them on Zerto. And then those that aren't, they are critical, but not as critical, can be moved to a backup solution. And with the Zerto piece, the CDP, we can, as you mentioned, write that out to a longer term retention. So CDP today can be done from 1 hour to 30 days. We don't see many adopt that big of a CDP. And that's where we rely on organizations such as yourself to help that customer define what is their journaling need to be. What's that limit or the size? Is it 3 days, 5 days, 7 days, up to the 30? And then they can take that same criticality of CDP and we can write that off to that immutable copy, as you mentioned before, and give you up to a year of having that journal and that capability. So that's that's some of the performance pieces that Zerto has added to it in recent years, and that's been adopted by you guys.
Speaking of stitching things together, we're a heterogeneous recovery environment. So, I mean, if you have more than just x86, I mean, if you've got IBM mainframe, IBM power systems, x86 physical or virtual, we can stitch all that back together for you back at our data centers. So, we just got a wide range of platform capabilities to recover your systems into. If you've got, object storage or unstructured data file system sets, we can replicate that into. But let's take a look.
You guys do that very seamlessly. I think that's one of the things that really truly separates you apart, because you're not worried about all the other things that you're trying to drive for business. You are focused on disaster recovery, you have experts in all of those platforms that you just mentioned. So putting something or stitching something together really isn't making a quilt. It's about being craftsmen and truly making something that doesn't have holes in it. It makes it seamless for that customer.
I like that, craftsman.
Yeah,
All right.
you craftsman for sure.
Take us through the journaling here, just for those that may not quite understand continuous data protection. What can Zerto do for you here?
Yeah, so your typical backup, would be taken, say, between 10 and 2 in the morning kind of thing. We've highlighted that there. And then the next backup's not for 24 hours. And all of your data that's being backed up has to be staggered, because you can't flood that server or those servers as they do those backups all at once. Then if you were using storage replication or other, you got 4-hour kind of snapshot of that array. If you're doing snapshotting from a VMware perspective, and that you don't want to be stunning those VMs every 4 hours or any less than that. Where Zerto, we are not intrusive into the operating system. We have no effect in there. But again, like I mentioned, we are at the hypervisor layer. We're going to take only the writes as they change, any of those bits and changes. So they're very small, and this is why we get great RPOs, is because we're only taking the writes and then we're writing them over. And some of the things that you can do with that is we have the ability to create virtual protection groups, or VPGs as we refer to them. And you can put a whole like everything associated with an application, whether it's a database server, and then you got a web hosting server, and the application itself server. You want to have them that all have roughly the same timestamp if all possible. So if you put them in a VPG, they will have and come over with the same timestamp as we create those checkpoints, if that's seconds to minutes. And as you see on this diagram up here, we have the ability to highlight and detect whether or not there's an anomaly going on, such as a change, more IO change than normal in your application. We're going to put a little side note into our journaling to say, hey, there was suspicious activity here. Please check this checkpoint. You know what I mean? And so if you got hit with the ransom and it started happening, and at 10 o'clock you were fully infected, how do we roll back? So that's where it would be highlighted in our checkpoints, and you'll be able to roll back to before there was the outbreak or the blast pattern, as we have referred to it before. And that's where Zerto, we just roll back. It's kind of like TiVo. It's the best way to think about it. It's rolling the movie back, so you don't have to watch the commercials, all that other kind of thing. We can roll back to a checkpoint that we know is clear. And again, it's all being done without any impact to production.
That's right. I threw in there, it's like the flux capacitor, which maybe not a lot of people get anymore, but that makes time travel possible.
Sure. And you are spot on with that. We have, it's all behind the scenes. It's the Wizard of Oz a little bit. There's it seems like magic, but that easy button does make it all work, which would be pushing and plugging in the flux capacitor to make it all go back.
Yeah. So just to wrap it up, this will be the last slide, but really it's, what Recovery Point's going to do for you. Using Zerto and using the other DR tools that are out there, we offer a managed recovery service, and it's really going to take your disaster recovery, your incident response to the next level. It's where we're going to apply automation and orchestration on top of all the DR processes that you might have in place. Regardless of if it's on-prem or public cloud, or if it's SaaS data, we'll work with it. And really the goal is to increase the frequency of test cycles. With Zerto, you can do that seamlessly with their API integration. So we've got runbook and code that just automates test failover execution inside of Zerto. Bring your entire infrastructure online, confirm that it's communicating between systems. We can do application checks, and then shut it all down. And we could run that nightly if we needed to, and then send you reports every day if you really want to get that granular. But those are the capabilities that we offer, and that Zerto enables us to achieve through DR testing processes. And that's what we deliver to our clients. So it also allows for preventative security from a security perspective, because you can find the gaps in your DR plan. So over time, systems are decommissioned, applications are changed, technology changes, but the DR plan typically gets left behind, or it's an afterthought. Many companies might test annually, every 12 months. And by that 12th month, when your DR test is scheduled and coming up, your DR plan is, I guarantee it's way out of date. There's a lot of systems missing, data sets have changed, and you're really not recoverable if you had a true event. So, that's one of the services that we bring to the table to excuse me, take your disaster recovery to the next level.
No, I think that's what really separates you guys from a lot of the other providers that are out there. You've invested, like we talked on a slide initially, about where to invest in the training, and you guys filling gaps. This is another one of those places where you really fill the gaps. You've built you've built and build it off of our APIs, but you built the ability to do, as you just said, testing and others, which isn't with every other provider that's out there. There's one of the things that separates you guys. You're focused on DR, and what you've done in other platforms for other, when I say platforms, I'm talking about mainframe power and all that other, you've been able to bring into the Intel arena, such as the VMware environment, and apply those same things. So those were much longer, older type of platforms, and you've been able to take the best of breed stuff to bring it in here. And I think that's one of the reasons why you've chosen Zerto, and one of the reasons why we're happy to be such a great partner with you.
Thank you, Brian. So we'll say thank you, and if there's a little bit of time left here, Mackenzie, we'll take some questions.
Hey, you two. Great presentation. I love this dialogue. We are at time, so we won't be able to do live Q&A. I'm sorry. But you do have some questions there in the queue. So if either of you are able to stick around and you want to respond by chat, or if you guys want to take those up and follow up, you can absolutely do that as well. But yeah, great presentation, you two. And I hate to give you the little Bo Peep hook, but I'm just going to say thanks for being here.
Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
Awesome, you too. Take care. And again, if you want to stick around, feel free to do that.
All right.